Hi, everybody. Welcome. And thank you for joining our webinar. I'm Wendy Brown. I'm Director of Content Marketing here at Payscale, and today's webinar is a partnership between Lattice and Payscale. Just to make sure you're familiar, Lattice is a people management tool that offers performance reviews, employee engagement surveys, real-time feedback, weekly check-ins, and goal setting in a way that allows companies to focus on employee development, growth, and engagement. In Payscale, we offer modern compensation software and the most precise, real-time data-driven insights to help organizations and their people develop a shared understanding around compensation. We have 3 business leaders joining us today. And first of all, we'll do some introductions. And we have Noah. Noah Warder, can you tell us your title and what your company does?
Yeah, so my name is Noah Warder, Director of Operations here at Dispatch. We're an email templating solution for SME companies. So if you send lots of emails and you want to empower your marketers to be able to change those emails, we'll help you out with that.
Great. Next we have Rekha. And can you tell us your title and what your company does?
Hi, I'm Rekha Venturapalli. I am VP of HR Operations at VCOM Solutions. We are based out of San Ramon, East Bay of San Francisco. We are a cloud-based software and managed services company. We help mid-level enterprises with their IT spend management.
Awesome. And then last but not least, we have Chris. Chris, can you tell us, gives your title, and you can maybe talk a little about what you do here at Payscale as well.
Yeah, so I'm the Senior Director of Talent Acquisition at Payscale. I've been here for a little bit over 5 years now, and I was actually the first full-time recruiter that Payscale hired. And so I was brought on to build a recruiting function from scratch. And over the last 5 years, we've grown from 120 employees roughly to, I think we're at about 450 employees today. And I manage a team of 5 people total.
Awesome, thank you. Great, and welcome to all of you. And let's get started. So first, let's cover transparency in general. The definition of transparency. And let's start with, we'll talk to Noah and Rekha. What does transparency mean for your organization? And we'll start with Noah.
Yeah, so transparency has always been a big part of who we are here at Dispatch and one of our core values. And what it really means to us is just really being open about everything that the company is doing and what we're doing as a company, whether that's how much runway we have left, what our burn rate is, customer churn, all finances, to what leadership is discussing in their leadership meetings, to what our CEO is presenting to the board. Everything is available for the entire company to get insight on. And the reason we do this is so everyone has the information and the insight into what the company is doing so they can make the best decisions for the company. And so we put a lot of trust within our organization, and all team members here know that they're trusted to make the best decisions for the company at any given time because they have the information on how the company is doing at any given time.
Great. And what about you, Rekha?
So transparency is also one of our core values, along with authenticity and vulnerability. We believe that it fosters trust with employees and our customers. And to quote our CEO, Gary Storm, it helps make decisions faster, communication becomes effective, and we are able to positively impact both our customers and our employees. And it creates success all over for all of us, being transparent about everything we do, where we stand, what our challenges are, and then really being able to have those positive, transparent discussions helps us a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. And at Payscale, we consider transparency to be paramount to our company's success and any company's success. And one of the things that we've developed is the idea of transparency spectrum. And so just quickly, it's on a scale of 1 to 5, companies can gauge what the right level of transparency is just for their particular organization. So there's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all solution for every company, but some organizations may find that as they grow, so does their need to adjust their approach. And speaking of which, I would love to know, what was, Rekha, we'll start with you. What was the catalyst for your organization to implement transparency?
So we didn't actually implement it purposely. Like one day we didn't wake up and decide transparency is important. It was always in our DNA, especially for our leadership team. And over the years, we found ways to get better at it. We realized that it is important to stay true to our values. And in order to create a great culture and trust and engagement, and practicing that over the years helped us get to where we are now, and win awards 12 years in a row at Bay Area's Best Places to Work, Glassdoor Best Places to Work award. Our CEO won one of the top 50 leaders recognition award on Glassdoor. So just keep reinforcing our values, living them every day, show up with those values. It kind of helps really to show the organization that we believe in it, we are following it, and we want everyone to be on board and help us make this a great culture here. So it was not like an implementation, but it was just reinforcing over the years, over and over, just finding ways to get better at it.
That's really interesting. So how do you incorporate transparency into your business operations, and how does that impact your culture?
So going back to making decisions faster, if we are being transparent with our customers on what we do, how we can manage their spend, how we can help them save, and effectively communicating our messaging. And our teams also need to understand and embrace and be passionate about what we do. So becoming experts at telling our story and telling it truthfully and honestly. When we are able to do this effectively, we gain the trust of all of our customers. And then internally, we have quarterly reviews where executive leadership team is sharing the information on how we did for the previous quarter. That includes sharing financials as well. We have quarterly town halls meetings where upcoming goals and vision is shared, and we look for feedback from our employees. We are always asking, here's our vision, here's what we want to do. We need your feedback on how we can deliver this. We don't want to just sit here and dictate on how we want to do things, but we want everyone to participate in it. We want everyone to feel like this is their own. They're aligned with this. So be very transparent about being the alignment, the goals and the vision, and then make them a part of this vision as well.
So what about you, Noah? How do you incorporate transparency into your company, and how has it impacted your culture?
Yeah, so there's a few things that we do. One, like Rekha, we have a monthly town hall. We call it Super Friday. So it's the first Friday of every month where we go over what we accomplished the month before, what each team did. We do any demos for new features and that kind of stuff. And then our customer success team also shares any customer insights into how the product can be better and that kind of stuff. And so that's on the product itself, giving a lot of transparency and showing the engineers and the product team what's happening and how the customers are using it, giving feedback. We also go through our finances, so how much runway we have left, how much money came in, did we have any customers churn, what new customers came on board, what customers are in contract phase, that kind of stuff. So the entire company at any point kind of knows how we are financially. And then we do quarterly reviews, and so every 3 months, people are either getting their own performance reviews or they're giving a review on the company and the leadership team themselves. And so that feedback really drives how people are growing their careers, and also how the leadership team and the company is directing itself and making itself better as well. And one of the things that we really like to do is my team will take the information and the feedback back from the entire organization on how the leadership team is doing and how the company is doing, build out action items, kind of present on it at the next Super Friday, build out, we use Asana, so build an Asana board with all of the action items that are going to be sort of accomplished because of the feedback that we were given and who's responsible for it. And anyone in the organization can go look at that project and see, okay, I can see the progress that the leadership team is taking on the feedback that I gave them, and how they're moving forward and how the company is changing direction. And then they can continue to give feedback on those initiatives moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's just really built a lot of trust within the organization and allowed people to feel that when they do give feedback, it is actually accepted and actioned upon. And sometimes those actions are just, we can't do that right now, and we'll readdress it in 3 to 6 months.
Interesting. And Rekha, I have this question for you. Who are the leaders in transparent business practices that you look to for inspiration?
So we work with Patrick Lencioni's organization called Table Group. We believe his philosophy around organizational health is very inspirational for us. And we believe that working together through better leadership and teamwork gives us an advantage over other organizations with regards to employee engagement and creating a healthy culture. And it all starts with building a cohesive leadership team, being transparent, being able to communicate clarity, and again, over-communicate clarity, and keep reinforcing our messaging, be transparent, and just be honest all the time and get alignment and be on the same page with the entire organization. So that helped us a lot, and we have built our culture and our values and everything around the principle of being a healthy organization. Great.
So let's switch gears a little bit and move to talent and recruiting. I'll start with you, Chris. And because these are two areas, talent recruiting can be greatly affected by transparency. What's your approach? What's been our approach, actually, I guess, to structuring conversations about compensation on initial phone interviews? And we'll start with you, Chris, and then we'll go to you, Noah.
Yeah, I believe in talking about compensation early and often. And so in my initial conversation with a candidate towards the end of the call, I'm really honest with them. I just say, hey, we're a compensation software company. We're very comfortable talking about compensation, but we also realize that not everyone is comfortable. People just have a lot of anxiety around the conversation of compensation. And so I just let them know that we can do this a couple of different ways. One, we absolutely do not have to talk about compensation if you don't feel comfortable at this point. Or two, you can share with me, where you want to be and your expectations around compensation, and then I can talk you through our salary range for any particular role, and I'll tell you the details of how we've built our labor market, how we've benchmarked a particular position, and basically just to see if we can get aligned, from the start. I think, it's easy being in corporate recruiting to. I think it's important to take a step back and to over communicate to the candidates the role that you play as a corporate recruiter. So I just let people know, I've been here for over 5 years. I'm building a company. I'm not looking for quick wins. Here's how I'm incentivized. I don't get paid a commission. We're not trying to bring you in for below market value. We're trying to hire people that are going to be genuinely excited about their compensation, that want to stay here for a long time. And I think once you create that alignment with the candidate, it breaks down a lot of those natural barriers, and it creates just an opportunity to have a more transparent and trusting dialogue throughout the rest of the recruiting process. Oh, and I'll add, sorry, and I realize that that's easy for me to say because I work for a compensation software company that's very transparent. To be able to really use this approach, you do need a solid compensation strategy. You need data that you can trust. Otherwise, I don't know how you would have those conversations.
Yeah. What about you, Noah? How are you structuring those conversations on initial phone interviews for your company?
Yeah, so we do something a little bit differently that we found from a lot of other organizations, is that we post the salary range on our job postings. And so every job posting that we put up has a salary range on it. So everyone who's applying for that role already knows what that role can pay. whether it's on the bottom end or the top end. And so we go into every salary conversation or every sort of phone conversation, having the initial, like, what are you interested in? Why did you apply for the role, et cetera, et cetera. And then near the end, we sort of do the same approach. Chris is like, so you've applied for the role, you saw the salary range that was for this role. Is that something that you're like, did that salary range seem fair to you? If yes, great. Let's dive into the nitty gritty of that a little bit and go into like more details of the total compensation package, because salary is just a little piece of it. And if not, we can also have that conversation of why you think that salary range isn't correct for you, and what extra benefits you'd be bringing to the organization that would require more of an adjustment. And so one of the reasons we do this is we really try not to negotiate. That might seem strange for a lot of organizations, but we don't want to negotiate on salary offers. And one of the reasons we do this is because historically, underrepresented groups within tech and other industries aren't great at negotiations. And so the reason we've done this is just as part of our D&I efforts of, this is what we pay. We don't really negotiate on our offers. We'll talk about the whole compensation package with you in that initial conversation. And if that's not for you, that's fine. And we don't waste anybody else's time. But if that is for you and you are excited about this, and that's great, let's continue this conversation and keep moving forward.
That's a really interesting way to approach. And then, Chris, back to you for another question on this. So when you're talking to the candidates, how do you get them to engage in the transparent conversation about compensation when you're making an offer, for instance?
Yeah, so hopefully if we've done our job right throughout the recruiting process, the offer is more of a formality. I think if there's any surprises during an offer call, you're in trouble at that point. And I just let people know, we do something very similar to what Noah just mentioned. We really try to put our best foot forward with every single offer that we make. And for those same reasons, historically, that's been a huge contributor to the gender pay gap. And, we really want to avoid that. And, the other thing that I find is that sometimes, if you don't go out with your best offer, you can actually punish the people that are most excited about joining your company, which is, obviously not ideal for many reasons. And so I just tell people, like, it's not that we don't ever negotiate, because we certainly do, but we really are thoughtful about our first offer. We don't have a 5% that's hiding up our sleeve. And I think people respond really well to that. I think, all that people want is to be treated fair and to not feel like they're being gotten, I guess is how you'd say that. And, we want people walking away feeling like, Payscale's made us a fair offer. And and I'll ask people after I make them the offer, even though we've talked about compensation quite a bit up until this point, I'll still ask them, like, are you excited about the offer? How do you feel about it? Do you think it's fair? Because I want their honest feedback to make sure that they're going to be happy.
Can I ask both the guys a question?
Yeah.
So if you feel like you are putting your best offer forward and you have a candidate that you really want, but the candidate doesn't feel that way, and you have the risk of losing them by saying this is non-negotiable, how do you handle that?
So, I try to take care of that before we actually deliver a formal offer. And so when I get to a point where it's really likely that we're going to make a candidate an offer, I will schedule a call with them before I have the offer approved. And I'll just talk through, just to make sure that A, they really want to work at Payscale or they want the job. And then B, just to go over compensation again and just be like, hey, I know when we first talked, here's the range that we talked about. My assumption is the offer is likely going to come in around here. And if for whatever reason that's not going to be exciting to you, the best thing that you can do is tell me that right now, because That way I have the ability to have a conversation with the hiring manager before we've put together a formal offer, because once we put together the formal offer, it's just way less likely that we're going to go back and make any kinds of changes to it. So by the time I actually get the offer approval and then deliver the offer, we're really pretty close and aligned. And we give, here and there, we don't do a blanket like, we're always going to come back at 5%, but we might work in other things that aren't base salary related. There's lots of different options that we can look at. But the core base salary from the offer is something that we really try to stick to.
Yeah.
Similar approach to Chris. By the time we're getting to a formal offer stage, we've had a lot of conversations. We're generally really aligned with the candidate on what their expectations are and what our expectations are. I don't think we've ever gotten to a formal offer stage where we sent the formal offer for signature and like really moving forward, where someone came back and said, actually, this isn't the dollar amount that I was looking for. It's like, it's very similar, because like we'll get on a call before we make that formal offer, before we do all the paperwork, before we really get into it and be like, okay, let's just like have this final conversation. Let's talk about like the whole compensation package. Let's talk about any concerns that you might have on any of the things that we're doing. And sometimes we'll also talk to them about like, like we're a smaller company, so right now, we may not offer that benefit, but we do have plans to implement it in Q4 or Q1 of 2020, and like go down the path of like what our roadmap looks like for more benefits coming down the pipe.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. And Reka, question for you here. So when it comes to, actually for you and Noah, but when it comes to employee engagement strategy, how has transparency factored into it for you, and how do you incorporate it into your engagement strategy?
So for us, it's being purposeful in our conversations, whether it is quarterly reviews or annual performance reviews, asking simple questions like, what does success mean to you? Do you think you have everything to be successful in your role? If not, how I, as your manager, can help you? How can I help you be successful? And then holding employees accountable for what they signed up for. Also ask them to hold me accountable as their manager if I am not delivering on my promises. If I told them something that I would do for them and I didn't, hold me accountable. So being very purposeful, like what does success mean to you? What do you need from me? We have annual employee summit every year where all employees get together. Our executive leadership team delivers our vision for the forthcoming year, our goals and vision. And then we ask employees to participate in the overall strategy. We have brainstorming sessions. We take their feedback. And we also do discussions department-wise. And we ask them to come up with goals, formulate their vision of success that aligns with the corporate goals. And then throughout the year, like Noah mentioned before, we track those that feedback. We track the action items, and we keep delivering on them. And then if there is something that is not deliverable, we let people know like why we couldn't do it now. We're tabling it for next time, or we're working on it, and things like that. We really have to create an environment where people feel trusted to come have those conversations with us, whether they're happy in their careers, whether they want to do something else, they want a different role, whether it's at WeCom or outside. We are open to it, and we welcome those conversations. Ultimately, we want people to be happy with what they're doing and give us 100%. And if they're not able to do that, then let's find something that will make you happy, that will bring out your 100% potential. So we love for people to come and have those transparent conversations with us.
And what about you, Noah? How is transparency factored into your employee engagement?
Yeah, it's very similar to what Rega was talking about, of like really trying to get the team to feel like they can give feedback, and that feedback's going to be actioned on. And really focusing on the team being able to give anonymous feedback, because sometimes you'll get different answers when people feel like when it's an anonymous feedback form, they know that their face isn't associated with it, versus everyone does a weekly one-on-one with their managers where they can get feedback on how the company's doing, how their career is progressing, that kind of stuff. And a lot of that times, that manager feedback will trickle up to the leadership team. And so then the managers will approach like whoever their department head is and be like, hey, this is what my team's telling me. This is feedback that I'm hearing from 3 or 4 people. It should be addressed, and I don't know how you're going to do that. And then the leadership team will take it and talk about it. Usually we have a bi-weekly leadership meeting that we talk about anything. And so a lot of the time that feedback will be addressed then. And then we'll talk about it at our all hands stand up. We're just like, this is some feedback that has come up to the leadership team. This is one of the ways that we think we're going to address it. If you have any feedback on how we're going to be addressing it, we'd love to hear from you then. And if people are happy about that, then we're going to keep moving forward, and this is how we're going to do about it. Or we got this feedback, we're going to address it in 3 months, because right now this is the priority, but we definitely hear the feedback, and it is something that is on our roadmap that we'll be looking at. And it's really just helped people trust the organization and trust the leadership team, that because we always make sure that we're looping back on all those initiatives, and giving people updates, even if the update is, it's been a couple months, we're still thinking about it, it's going to happen next month, we promise. Just making sure that people always know that those things that they are giving us feedback on are going to get actioned on eventually, if not right away. And that builds the trust. So when we say things like, we're going to have to push this product launch off 3 weeks, and these are the reasons why, they know that those reasons are authentic and real.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about communication, which is integral when it comes to transparency. What are some corporate communication techniques, and you've talked about it, you just touched on it a little bit, that promote trust and trust within your teams? And we can start with you, Rekha.
So I do not relate to the word technique. For us, it is a behavior. At WeCom, transparency is a behavior that we want to emulate. So it's collective for all of us. Shared vulnerabilities, shared successes, and collective accountability. And being honest, disseminating all of the information to the org, having an open line of communication, and sharing all the facts. When we do our quarterly reviews or town hall meetings, along with talking about what went well, what were our successes, we also talk about what didn't go well and why it didn't go well. How are we addressing, what is addressing it in our strategy? Where did we go wrong, or why are we late on something? Why are we not able to deliver something? Let's focus on fixing that and moving forward. Those are like lessons learned for us. We are not trying to hide anything. We are 100% open with our employees on what went right and what went wrong and how we are working on it. And every person, I think, at WeCom owns transparency, and we all contribute to it. Our leadership team doesn't just talk the talk, but we walk it too. We all emulate those behaviors, lead by example.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, Noah? The techniques you've used to communicate and have this the feeling of trust within the employee population.
Yeah, so our communication is it's very simple, just open and honest, and as much as we can give people when they ask for it. We try not to inundate people with too many details, but always, kind of give the high level picture of this is what we're doing, this is the reasons why we're doing it. If you want to learn more, you can look here, and here it's all documented and the reasons why we're doing it, or you can come and ask one of us or ask whoever's leading that initiative. So a lot of, high level here, here's what we're doing, here are the reasons why we're doing it, here's how you get more information about why we're doing it and get into the nitty-gritty detail, or you can talk to anyone on the leadership team about why we're doing it, or your manager, who should also know the information on why they're doing it. A big thing that we do as well, and we've run into this in the past, and I'm sure every organization has run into it in the past, is making sure our managers have the skills and the tools that they need to also have those proper forms of communication. because not everyone knows how to communicate right away and how to have those open and honest dialogues, not because they're trying to hide anything, just because they haven't been able to do it. So, making sure managers and frontline employees all know how to give feedback, what good feedback looks like, what bad feedback looks like, doing training on internal biases and what those and how those can crop up and how that can affect feedback or how you look at things. And so just making sure everyone in the organization is armed with the right tools and skills to have those conversations, because then we can all really be transparent with each other.
Chris, do you have any thoughts on that in communicating trust in sort of the process that you're using in recruiting?
No, but I have a, when Rekha said that, it's a behavior, I have a story that stuck with me. When I first started at Payscale, and we had 130 employees, and we had a all hands meeting at the Seattle Public Library, and one of our directors of engineering, openly challenged our CEO, Mike, on the direction that we were going as a company. And the way that Mike responded, I think he was just very open to the feedback. He didn't get mad. He just addressed it. And there were no hard feelings after that. And so here I was 1 month into Payscale, and I was like, okay, this is a transparent culture. We live it, we talk about it, but we don't have to plaster it all over the walls. It's just natural in our behaviors and how we operate.
Yeah, thanks for that. And we have touched on this a little bit when we were talking about recruiting earlier, but is there such a thing as over communication to employees? Noah and Rekha, what do you think?
I don't think you can over communicate. I think you can communicate poorly. And I think a lot of organizations, and we did this, we struggled with it in the past as well, is you can communicate the wrong points, or you can communicate the wrong reasons of why things are being done. And it's just one of those tools and muscles that you have to use often to get better at it. And we've always been very sort of transparent about that, of we're also learning how to do this. We're a younger organization, we're a little bit smaller, so sometimes we're going to make mistakes, and call us on it, and we'll own up to those mistakes. And so that's how we've communicated with our team, of we are always communicating with them, and sometimes we might communicate the wrong things, and they'll call us out on it, and we'll readdress and hopefully, make sure that their feedback is being addressed, and then also admit our fault for not communicating it properly in the first place, which is also one of our values, is embracing failure, because if you are afraid to fail, then you're not going to succeed.
Right. Any additional thoughts on that, Rekha?
Yeah, so for us, transparency itself means over communicating. It's about sharing all the facts. It's about being honest. It's about taking accountability. We believe that someone needs to hear something 7 times in order to finally get it, to understand where we're going, right? So keep repeating it, create clarity, and over-communicate clarity, reinforce it. And when it comes to reinforcing clarity, there's no such thing as too much communication. And like Noah said, don't communicate the wrong thing or don't understand the wrong thing, but communicate clarity, create clarity. Cascading information is another very important part of this, and we have to make sure we cascade the right information to our people so they are better equipped and aligned with the goals and where we are going and the vision. And again, for us too, there is no such thing as being perfect. We are all human beings. We are all work in progress. We all make mistakes. It's about owning it. It's about taking accountability and moving forward positively on trying to fix it, moving forward positively. So there is no such thing as over communication ever.
Yeah, that's a really good segue into the topic of leadership, I think. So for you guys, what role does leadership play in a culture of transparency, and what have you seen that's worked and perhaps not worked?
So for us, It's in our DNA. Our leadership has always believed in it, and it is one of the core values. So it's no brainer for us or the leadership team to live these values every day, to be transparent, whether it's customers or employees. And then when the organization sees their leaders emulate these behaviors and leading by example, it creates an environment of trust. They show up every day. I think it is very important in any organization for the leaders to show up with such behaviors and contribute to the trust they are building, to the culture they are building. It's just not, leaders can't just say, we want, this great culture, we want this kind of culture, but not participate in it themselves. It doesn't work that way. So they have to walk the talk. And that's what leadership has been doing at WeCom. Show up every day with these behaviors, with these values, and lead by example.
Yeah,
Awesome. What about you?
Yeah, very, very similar. It was like, if the leadership team is not showing up and doing it themselves, then no one else is going to do that. And so we've really focused on making sure that like everything the leadership team is discussing is open and transparent. Like we, again, using Asana, like all the topics that the leadership team addresses through feedback and everything, it's all open. So that project in Asana is open for everyone in the organization to look at and see what topics we're talking about, what issues have arisen, how we're addressing them, who's going to be taking the lead on it. So that's all, everything that we do is pretty much open for the entire company to see. And then whenever our CEO does presentations to the board, he also presents to the whole team the deck that he's showing the board. So it's like, this is what I'm talking about at the board level. No, nothing hidden here. You're all going to see what I'm going to tell the board before I tell the board. And so we really make sure that everyone's, seeing what we're talking about and what we're looking for and what projects we're tackling, so they can realize, they can see what we're doing, and then they can do it as well. They can be transparent in what they're doing.
Awesome. Those are really good points. So what would your advice be what would you tell an HR leader about who wants to implement transparency initiatives, but they're getting pushback from their senior leadership or C-level in their company? What would you tell them, and what would your advice be?
Yeah, so I've been lucky. I've never really had that pushback, which has been really nice. But I have had these conversations with other people in the community that we're based in up here in Canada. We're in like a younger tech city. So the one thing that I've always told people is like, you really need to like make the case for engagement and efficiency. And so when you're more transparent with your organization, your employees are going to be more engaged. And when your employees are more engaged, they're going to be more efficient and they're going to do their jobs better. There's going to be less mistakes. And when those mistakes are made, people are going to own up to them right away. So no one's hiding things away, and they're discovered like 3 months later, and you can't do anything about them at that point in time. So the biggest things that I've really pushed for like other HR people who've asked me about this is like, you just really need to make the case of like, this is the employee engagement side of things, and this is how efficiency is going to work. It's really hard to track an ROI on that, and I know a lot of like CEOs and COOs who want to see like hard numbers beside it. It's a hard thing to track, but you can definitely talk about using like employee pulse surveys and other employee engagement tools to track how employee engagement is going up or down based on how transparent your organization is. And then you can infer through higher engagement, increased ownership, increased autonomy, better decisions are being made, and mistakes are being owned up and addressed more quickly. This has always been a big piece of our organization of like, we don't want team members who are just working for a company. We want team members who are working on our company. And it's our company. It's everyone's company. It's not just the CEO's company.
Yeah. I'm going to move on to a different topic, and the topic is pay, and everyone's favorite topic, right? And the reason many of us show up at work is pay. And I want to know more about how have you at your organization implemented compensation transparency, and how are you approaching that and talking about it?
I'll start. So admittedly, we are not doing this as well as we could. and this was some feedback that we got on our last employee pulse survey. And so now we have projects in the works, very initial works to make a much more structured salary and pay structure for the entire organization. Because as of now, we have salary bands that we put on all of our open job postings, and those are all available for our employees to see, but we don't have the sort of like, how do you incrementally get up there, and what things you have to do. We have all the pieces, we just need to cobble it all together at this point. So we have like role definitions that are attached to core competencies for the organization, and as you master core competencies, you can get pay raises for those. So we have that. We just need to build out sort of like the instruction manual to piece it all together and show it to employees of like, here's the whole process. These are the things that you can do. These are the different salary ranges for every position. Here are the ones that aren't part of our organization yet, but this is how we envision them. And we'd also like feedback on that. And so we know before we initiate any type of salary review system or scale that we'll also push it out to the entire organization and get feedback from everyone on how they think they should also implement it, because in the end, it's how they're getting paid. They should probably have a say in how it's going to be built out.
Anybody else want to add to that? We're good. So let me move into this question a little bit more, and we covered it a little bit earlier. But what are the benefits of pay what are the benefits that you see for pay transparency, and then what are the risks of pay transparency as well?
I can take a stab at that. I mean, from a benefits perspective, I think that the more transparent that you are with employees about compensation, the more that you're alleviating that tension that exists. And I think, when people are consumed by thoughts of whether or not they're paid fairly, their ability to show up and give 100% at work is diminished. And so I think the more information that you can give your employees about why they're being paid, what they're being paid, and the more that you can back that up with data, the more likely you are to alleviate those concerns for them. On the risk side, I don't have the exact statistic, but I think it's something like most people benchmark themselves at the 80th percentile. And so it can be really challenging to tell someone, you have 2 years of experience and you're at the 30th percentile, because that naturally feels like, 30% less than an F to someone, right? And so I think you just have to be, I think you have to over communicate your compensation philosophy. You have to back it up with data, and you have to keep reiterating that in your conversations with your employees.
So for us, we welcome those conversations from our employees, and someone might feel that they should be at a certain level than they are. So we work with them to show, to help them, how can they get there? Let us build a path. Let us build, whether it is 6 months from now, 1 year from now, 5 years from now, you want to get to a certain compensation level, let's build a path for you on how you can get there. So that helps them feel like they're being involved, that they are part of what they want to become and where they want to be at. So we welcome those conversations. And like Noah said earlier, we publish our comp ranges on the jobs when we post. So people coming in, the newer candidates, they know exactly where they land and what range they are in. And sometimes if we get a less experienced candidate, we may start at the beginning of the band. Sometimes we get the mid-level. Sometimes we get the higher level candidates in that range. So it really varies where they land. But once they come in, we can continue having those conversations on how to get to the next level. What does it take for them to get more money, make more money?
Anything to add to that one, Noah?
Very similar to what Megan and Chris were saying. It's just like really welcoming the conversations, reducing anxiety, trying to make sure people have the knowledge of why they're being paid the rate they're being paid, and if people feel that's fair and justified, then they're happy and are not constantly thinking about how do I get more money. But at the point of, people grow or families grow and they want to make bigger purchases or buy a house. And so when those big purchases come up and they, need to have a salary adjustment, they can go to their manager and discuss it. And that was one of the reasons we started building out role definitions and core competencies, because then the manager can then look at what core competencies they've mastered, which ones they need to address before they can get up to the next band, and then build out a plan. Okay, like here are the new responsibilities you want to take on, and that comes with this amount of pay adjustment. Let's build out a path to get you there. So let's look at the next 3 months and how you're going to master these competencies and move forward. So we do need to get better at that, and we do need to get better at arming our managers with those conversations and building out those plans. But it's definitely something that we're working towards.
Awesome. Well, thanks to all of you for your great thoughts, and just anything you want to add before we open it up to Q&A? No? Okay. I will start to take a look at some of the questions we got, and we will answer as many as we can. There is a question that we have saying, and then you guys can sort of jump in for answering, but how do you handle the expectations that everything be public when leadership needs to keep some things private while in development discussions? Or do you not do that?
No, we do it. So recently, what we have been doing is we have a vision where we want to go, how we want to build out this organization, what divisions we want to have. So we were a little bit hesitant on, do we share it now? Will it create panic? Do we share it later when it is fully baked? But then we decided we have to be transparent. So we shared it as a vision. We said, this is our vision, whether it happens next year, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, this is where we want to go. Here are all the opportunities this vision will create for you guys. It's only positive, just reinforce with the positivity, reinforce with the opportunities that are available. And it's like nothing to panic now, nothing to worry about. When we finally get to where we want to be, this communication, this messaging, this communication will be relayed throughout the process. Everyone will be on the same page where we are heading. So we keep showing that vision to our teams every year, every quarter. Here's how much progress we made, and here are all the opportunities that you have available. So we don't have to hide anything. Project it as a vision, project it as this is a work in progress. So we will involve you guys as we go along this journey.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone want to add to that? Okay, I'll move on to the next question. The next question is, how transparent are you around performance increases and regarding how much is on the table, like the overall percent, the percent of comp has allocated to increases, and then the formula for distribution?
So we all of our salary ranges are sort of available, and we try to, and if there's not availability, we can have an open discussion about it with the team member. And so if there's 20, 30 grand available for somebody to increase in their role, then we just, that's the number that they know, and then there's different benchmarks on how to get it. Again, we're not fully fledged out in that, and we're building it out. There's pieces there, and that's the end goal is to have every single position have those bands, and it'll all be fully available for everyone in the organization to see it. Like, okay, I'm a senior developer at X amount of salary, and I know I can get X amount of salary as a senior developer, and here are the competencies I need to address to get there. And so I know exactly what percentage is available. One thing we don't do is we do not tie salary adjustments to performance reviews. They're completely separate. We don't think it's appropriate. We don't want people to be stressed out about having quote unquote good performance to get their salary arranged. Performance can be affected by a lot of things, and we don't need to be adding extra stresses about the salary adjustment being tied to it.
Interesting. Anything to add to that, Rekha? Okay. Here's a question. I'll have user-reported salary data from places like Payscale or Glassdoor or LinkedIn. How have you conducted pay-related? How do those help you or impact your pay-related discussions? And do you have to change your compensation conversations as a result of the more informed employee?
So we do have employees come to us and bring a Glassdoor salary, range or pay scale, salary.com. They can come up, they can bring it to us and say, here's how much a senior analyst makes in this area, and here's where I am at. So then we can talk about what are all the other things you're getting at WeCom, all the other non-compensation related perks, flexibility, work-life balance. You can be, work from home ability, things like that. There's a lot of other factors that also, play into someone's role. And then we can, again, as I previously said, we can work towards a path to get to that amount or to get to that compensation that they wish to make and how we can get there. And just like Noah said, look at the competencies, look at the skills needed, look at the number of years of experience and sometimes certifications. Let's get you there and lay a path for it.
What about you, Noah? Do you find people are coming in pretty well educated and well armed with where they think they should be compensation wise, and how do you handle that?
It goes both ways. So we've definitely had people come in who have no idea what they should be making, and then we're educating them on it. And we sort of try and use as many tools as we can. We don't try and rely on just one. And so using multiple tools that have different salaries and sort of like trying to find the happy medium and what the market rate is. Because we're in a very small technical community, there's not a lot of data for our city. And so we generally just look towards areas like Vancouver, Toronto, Seattle, and base our salaries off of those areas because those are the people we want to be hiring and how we think we should be paying here in Victoria. And so we have had situations in the past where we've had like really junior developers be like, well, this is what I can make in San Francisco. And I'm like, well, it costs 5x to live in San Francisco. This is the reason we pay this in Victoria because it's a lot cheaper to live here. And these are all the other reasons that we pay it. So there's been some education around that, but mainly it's with the more junior people coming into the organization of like, I can make this in New York, San Francisco, Boulder, Colorado. And it's like, yeah, like you can make that salary in those areas. And here are the reasons why they have to pay people those amounts of money. And this is why we pay this amount of money and the reasons we pay it here. And then generally when we have those conversations, most people are like, oh, I didn't realize it would, my rent's going to be $3,000 a month in San Francisco versus $1,200 in Victoria.
Yeah. Chris, you have an interesting perspective on this since we are Payscale. And so we do the two sides. We allow people to find out what they're worth with some of the best data out there. And then that data is also what feeds our compensation software. So have you experienced that, and that people are a lot more informed and possibly either our service or the others that are out there? What's that been
absolutely. It was a learning curve for me when I first started but we encourage people to do as much research as possible when it comes to compensation. So when someone applies to a job on our website, our auto reply has a bunch of very useful information, including resume tips and stats on bandwidth for our team to review resumes. But then one of the things that we also do is we send them a link to the Payscale website, and we encourage them to fill out a salary survey. And then when we schedule a phone interview with the candidate, again, we encourage them to fill out a salary survey online, because we want them to have as much information as possible going into our conversation with them. And a lot of times what happens is they do a set.
Oh, you're back, I think.
Am I back? So a lot of times, I'm not sure where I got cut off, but a lot of times they come back with a number, and then we have to talk through that number and talk through how they came to that number. And so, for example, in Seattle, our market is heavily influenced by Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, et cetera. And so we have to really, have those conversations with candidates about how those companies are different from Payscale. And it's really helpful to have them fill out a salary survey and have a report as a starting point for our conversation. So we love it.
We better, yeah. Oh, sorry, we have like a motion detector, just 1 minute. And it's back. This is really live. Okay, where was I? Here's a good question. How transparent are you guys with regard to the quarterly bonus structures in conjunction with pay, and how do you handle that?
We don't have a bonus structure here. The only people who are paid on, I guess, bonuses or commission are salespeople. Everyone else, we just feel that it should be baked into their base salary. And so any bonuses that other companies might offer, it's just, we try and make sure our market salary rate would be inconsiderate of that, because we assume people are doing the best they can be doing all the time anyways.
So for us, it's a similar thing too. Our sales and care team mostly have the commissions and bonuses. And the other teams, some key positions have what we call MBOs, and it's paid out quarterly. And that is, again, based on special projects and things that they do that is beyond their scope of their work. Anything that is beyond what they're doing. So those are considered their MBOs for that quarter. We set the goals at the beginning of the quarter, and we measure them accordingly and pay out. There's a specific amount that they have a potential to earn every quarter.
All right. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Chris, or?
We do something very similar. We have a variable compensation, and it depends on what level you are, what percentage of it is tied to company performance, but they're tied to 3 really simple company metrics. It's revenue, retention, and EBITDA. And so people know how the company is doing throughout the year. We report on that quarterly at our all hands meetings. And then for the individual component of the variable compensation, it's actually up to the employee and the manager to sit down and create their goals for the year, and then to measure against those goals consistently throughout the year. So by the time you get to the end of the year, you should know with almost like 100% certainty what your variable compensation payout will be.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, and that when we're doing that, and when I'm doing that with my team, it's important you do have one-on-ones. We have set these goals, and that you are talking about them on a consistent basis. And so there really are no surprises when you come to that point, and when it comes to the point of getting your variable pay. So again, communication's key. Yeah. Well, this is bringing us to the end of our time. We really appreciate everybody coming. I know that they will be sending out a recording as well, and appreciate your time, and thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.